In this video, we'll dive into the world of authentication using Supabase and Next.js. So this is as you can see, we have a nice landing page for the project, and a user can log in. And can sign up. And as you can see, this is properly styled using Tailwind CSS and ShadCN UI. So let's test the sign in. So first I need to go back to Supabase to show you how the flow continue with GitHub. So as you can currently see, we have no users in the project. So let's try signing in. As you can see, we get an error creating account. So if we try creating an account now, so let me give it a password with 1111 So now I create the account. So I should get an email. So if I go over to email, see, as you can see, we get a confirmation link just right now. And if we go back to Supabase, we actually see our users, but as you can see, we still need to wait for verification before the user can actually be signed in. So if we click this link, and you can see it takes us back to the place, and now we can actually access the dashboard. Now you can see, if we refresh this, reload, now you can see the confirmation message has been is gone. So now it prompts us back to sign in. Look what happens if we go to a dashboard or a protected route. We cancel. Now let's try signing in with a wrong password. We get an error message saying incorrect email or password. So if we type in the right password, so if we try signing in now with the password, as you can see, we're redirected back to this beautiful dashboard where we have the projects. We can see the getting started, and now we can actually log out. A quick note, this is a beginner's guide to creating an authentication service for your project. And also a cool thing I added is we can sign up using Google. So if I click this, I can actually use this. And as you can see, we are redirected back to this place. So if I copy this link and I log out, if I try accessing the link back, you can see it redirects us back to the sign-in page. So yeah, get ready. Let's start coding this. The first thing we need to do is we need to install the Next.js, add the ShadCN, and use the Tailwind CSS. But if you head over to my GitHub, you can actually clone this and just start working right with the authentication. So if I create a new folder, I'll call this auth, and I click, and over here I type cmd and I type code dot. It takes me over to Visual Studio Code. People like using this as their command line. I don't actually like it. So for my command line, from a terminal, I would like to use VS Code. So what you do is you want to type git clone, and you paste the link, and you can add the git. As you can see, it's there. So if you go back to this, we click, so we can actually close this. Now we're in here and we type, click this. Yeah, that's the project. CMD code dot, and we're in. So I'll close this. I don't know what that is. Okay, close this, go back here. As you can see, we have the project in here. So the next thing we need to do is hit npm install to install the dependencies. Now that it has finished installing, we can simply clear the terminal, and we can, before we start the server, we need to check the app. So as you can see, we have the components. This stores the landing page. This is the home page. And in the APIs folder, that's where we actually have the authentication flow, the sign up, and the login. And this is the dashboard. So now we can run npm run dev. And if we head over to our browser, localhost 3000, you should get this. Don't worry about this. This is just like a div, like a p tag in a div, something. So we can clear this out. So this is how it looks, and you can sign in. So you need to create an account with Supabase. I already have an account, so I'm just gonna sign in. So the next thing we have to do is create a new project and choose your organization. If you don't have an organization, you can simply create an organization. So for this, I'll call this Supabase tutorial, and you can set in a password if you want. For this project, I won't set a password, and you can basically choose whichever one is closer to you. So I'll just leave this the way it is and hit create. Done. So as this is a beginner's tutorial, the two most important things you're going to need is you need your anon key and your Supabase URL. So the next thing we need to do is install the Supabase authentication package. So for that, we need to go back into our project. We need to control, or you can simply come here and terminal, new terminal, close this. So we need to install. So we run npm. Oh, let me create a new one. Nice. Npm install at supabase slash /ssr. Also at supabase slash auth slash helpers dash next.js, and at supabase slash supabase js. This three. You enter. That should take a while. And now that is done, we successfully, if you go into your package.json, you can see that it has been successfully added. So now the next thing we need to do is in our root folder, we need to configure our .env files to actually store our keys. So like I said earlier, the keys we are going to be storing is our anon key and our URL key. So if you come back to this home, and if you hit connect, app frameworks, and the first one we have here is Next.js. So what you have to do is simply just hit copy and paste, and that's it. Okay, we need to rename this to .env.local. I think .env should also work, yeah. And the next thing we need to do is create our middleware. So if I go back to this, close the terminal, and in the root directory, I create um, a file named middleware.js. And also in the root directory, I need to define our Supabase to hold our keys. So I create this. You can simply put Supabase, or I usually put these type of information in a utils folder. So I name this to utils, and in there you create a supabase.js. And in the supabase.js file, you simply import the client, create client from our supabase/supabase. Okay, I need to enable this back. JS. Then I can say our Supabase URL to our to the URL in our env file. So that will be process.env dot. I will just copy this and paste it here. Okay, let me enable this. I think it's enabled. Okay, I need to. Okay, I see. Yeah. And now we need to create another variable to hold our unknown key from the env file. So we can say const supabase unknown key process.env. I just need to double check if this is the same as this. Yeah, okay. And then we export const supabase equal to the create client we initially imported, to the supabase URL, and our supabase unknown key. And we're done. So now in our middleware.js, I need to rename this. Rename middleware.js. We also need to import the create client, create middleware client from at Supabase next auth. So you need to put this in a curly bracket. Yeah. Then we also need to import next response from Next.js, and we need to export a sync function middleware, and we need a response that comes from the next response. And our Supabase uses the create middleware client to hold that response. And we just simply await supabase.auth.get session, then rest. Just simply return the response. So what this function basically does is it checks if there is a session. If there is a session, then the user is authorized. If there's not, then the user isn't authorized. So now we're ready to start implementing the logic, the sign in and sign up functionality. So if we go over, okay, let's start with the sign up. If you go over back to our app, API auth and the sign up. So I already did a simple form validation to handle the logic. So if I hit create, you can see we get an error. And if I extend this back, what you see is if I hit create, we actually get an object that holds the email, the user's email, and the password. Good. So now we can start with our authentication. So I need to close this back and just bring this over here. Nice. So the very first thing we need to do is import the create client component from the Supabase auth helper Next.js. So import the create client Supabase component, and you need to actually import Supabase from our utils folder. Supabase from, this should be in, moving back, utils slash Supabase. Nice. This should work. Okay. So next, first and foremost, what we need to do is actually check if the user is authenticated. So if the user is authenticated, then we move the user to the dashboard. Else, then you can stay here. So the first thing we need to do is we need to initialize our Supabase create clients component. So we can say const Supabase should be our create client component. Actually holds nothing. And we can put the user's information in a state variable, user, and set user to null. And we also need a loading and set loading state. Set this to true. And we have a router at the bottom for our navigation. So now what we need to do is we need to check if the user is active or not. So for that, we need to use a use effect. Look. So we could create an async function called get user, and the const data we await Supabase auth that gets user, and we set the user to user. So the user information we get from the Supabase, we set it into our use state hook, and then we set this to false. Okay, then here we simply just call get user. And now here we need to handle the rerouting. So let's console.log load in and user just to see this in action. So if we go back to this, refresh this, open the console, as you can see, it's okay. Let's click this and refresh. It's set to false. So this is the loading state, and we get null since there is no user yet. So we can take this away. So what I like to do next is, so if load in, then you can simply return load in, but I already made a loading animation, and you can find the animation in here. It's a loading animation component. So if loading is true, then you render the loading animation. Then if user, then you can say router to push to the dashboard. Or so if the user is actually logged in, then you need to push to the dashboard. So I think a much better way to handle this is handling it here. So you can say if user, then if there is a user, then you simply, if not user, you return this. Else you can just copy this route to the push. You can comment this out or just take it out. And if you refresh, you can see the loading animation and it's there. So now we need to sign up the user. So in the handle submit form, here, this is where we actually start authenticating the user. So what we do is turn this off. So I need to basically call the Supabase here, const data and error is equal to await Supabase. Okay, I should put this in a try catch, but yeah, try catch error, and yeah, this. So start with the catch because it's so you can console.log or console.error the error. And I added a general error hook, stay hook, so you can either pass this in. You can just give it a custom error you want. I'll say error creating account. So now in here, we need to create our const. Yeah, so to rename this to error, and we'll call this sign up error. So await supabase.signup. Then since we're just signing up with an email and password, so we pass in an email to the form data.email and then a password to the form data.password. And a cool thing we can do with Supabase is we can actually add our redirect URLs. So if the user signs up successfully, then we can redirect our users to the dashboard page. So we have a redirect to, so I can just rename this. I'll just simply copy this and paste. So dashboard slash, yeah, just dashboard. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that looks about right. And so we can say if there's a sign up error, then we can simply set the general error to this, or we can simply console.log could not sign up. Else we push to the dashboard. So I think that should work. So if we go back here, we refresh. Go back to the console, I play this. So if I hit create account, you get this validation thing. So you can create a password. And I hit create account. As you can see, we are automatically redirected to the dashboard. And also, we got sent an email. So if we check here our authentication back in Supabase, we can see I am in here. So it says waiting for verification. So what I would do is actually go to my email, head over to my email. Here, as you can see, if I click the link, it takes me back to this, but as you can see, okay, the redirecting was wrong. Oh, I see. I typed in the wrong thing here, dashboard. dashboard. Yep. And as you can see now, we're signed in. But if you notice, if we try accessing the sign up page, API/r sign up page, as you can see, we're still getting redirected here. So what I'll say is add this line of code to it. If user, then route to the push dashboard. So I'll take this out here. Okay, as you can see, we can still access the sign up. So if I go back to this just to confirm, if I console.log the user, we should still be getting null. Yeah, exactly. So what we need to do is we need to log in back. So so now we have to handle the sign in flow. Okay. Um so I'll actually redirect this back to the sign API/out/sign in. So if I go back to the signing page, it is similarly the same logic. So I copy this, paste it in here. I copy this and just paste it in here. And I go back here, I copy the logic inside. It's mostly similar, but it's a little bit different. So I come here and in here, I paste this in here. Nice. But for this, I'll actually need to change this to sign in with password here. So this, I can just call this to sign in error. Yep. So in the sign in with the password, we don't actually need this since we're going to be redirecting the user once the user signs in. So we can say if there is a sign in error, then we can say error signing in, but we also need to check if the user is in the database, if the user is signed up and is using the wrong password. So for that, we need to check if the sign in error, the message is equal to invalid login credentials. If that's that, then we need to set our general error like we did to invalid email or password. Then, yep, just that. Else, okay, in your need an else statement, then we set our general to error signing in. Then we can simply console.log the error, signing error. We don't actually need this. Yeah. So I need to take this out, take this. We can simply put it in a try catch block, but since this is a beginner friendly course, I just have to take this out. So if signing error, then the big else should be routed to push dashboard dashboard. So what this is doing is first here, if there is an email and password, then the we sign in with the password, we input the email and the password. So if there is a sign-in error, there's an error, then we display the error messages. Else we just go straight to the dashboard. And also we need to copy these lines of code. Should actually paste this up here also. Yeah. And come back to the sign in. We do the same thing. And yeah, that should be it. I think we're getting an error. Use state is not defined. Okay, I see. In here, we just simply need to pass in use effect. Note this is a client, so you need to always add clients, else you can't use the use state or the use effect hook. So if I take this out, this is what happens. You get this funny looking error that says you're importing a component that needs a use state. It only works in a client component. So we put this back in there and the error is gone. So as you can see, we have the loading mission. Okay, take this out. Okay, I see what's happening. I see what's happening. So I need to put it down here just to be on the safe side. Yep. So now let's try signing in. The same email. Now let me try with a different password. I hit sign in, and you see I get an invalid email or password. So let me use the correct login details. I hit sign in. Oh, I see. This should be SG. Good. Now you can see we're in the dashboard. So what happens if I go back? As you can see, we got redirected back into the dashboard page. So let me try accessing it like this. See, we got redirected back to the dashboard. And if I use sign up, we should also be redirected back into the. Okay, now we're getting this. Okay, we just need to do the same thing for this. I need to put it at the bottom of the list, just so. And like I said, just to be on the safer side, I will rewrite this back. If there is no user, then you display this. Else, then you just push this in here. Okay, then you just take this out. So let's try this back. It's refreshing. It should redirect us back to the dashboard page now. Okay, let me see. Now we're there. Now you didn't even get to see the sign, the page. So I think I should do the same thing with the login. So if not user, close this, copy this, and I paste it down here. Just click, take this out. Okay, need to put a question mark here. Nice. And now in the dashboard, now we need to display the email and you're signed in. And if you notice, anybody can still access the dashboard. So if we try this, anybody can still access the dashboard. So we also need to validate the protected route. So it's basically the same logic. Go to the dashboard layout on the page. which anyone you want. So come back to the sign up. You copy this. Okay, I don't think I actually need this. Take this out and take this out. Okay, you copy this and you paste in here. You copy this, paste in here. Also the use state, don't forget the use state. Paste in here. And we can simply do the same thing also. If we copy this, paste in here. And to handle this, instead of doing if not user, we just do the opposite. So if there is a user, then we display that. Else, we push to the sign up page. So I'll copy this and I paste it in here. So I rename this to auth. Okay, API slash auth slash sign in. Okay, good. So if I come back here, okay, as you can see the loading animation. So we need to import the loading animation. Yep, I think that should work now. Let's refresh this. Good, we can see it works. So if we, to test this, if you go back to the private tab and hit enter, we should be taken back into the, okay, this, we didn't import the router. So say import use router from next navigation. And we say const router is use router. That should do it. And if we hit this, okay, let's deconstruct this. As you can see, we got redirected back to this. So I'll just do it one more time. We got redirected back to this. Good. Now we can see it actually works. So if we come here, refresh, now we can see only authenticated users can actually access the dashboard. So now let's handle getting the users information. So getting the users information is basically simple. Since we already set it into use state hook. So let's console.log the user just so we can see the information. So in the console, you can see it pop up. So we get the ID, we get the email. That's what I'm looking for. So in here, we can simply say user.email, user question mark to avoid getting an undefined value. It's usually that email. So if I come back, boom, you can see it's here. So now let's handle the logout functionality. The logout is pretty simple. So let's create a button, a function, handle logout. Should be an async function. So we just try and we await Supabase sign out. Then the router, we just basically push it back to the sign in page. Then if there is an error, then we can just catch the error. And we can console.log it. What's going on? Try and I see. This to this and in here. Yes. So in the button, we need to add an on-click event. So on click, we handle this. So now let's try that. So if we hit logout, Bam, you go back to the sign in page. And if you try access the dashboard again, we get redirected back to this. So that is how you handle a simple authentication system that you can use in your project. But I would say this is a beginner's level tutorial, since if I would advise you authenticate the users on the server side just to avoid getting unnecessary user information, so the users unauthenticated users can actually use it. So thank you very much. So the code to this would actually be on GitHub, just so you could actually get and implement on your project. Thank you.